on the line with us is Amanda Milkovits. Amanda is the Rhode Island reporter with the Boston Globe, bostonglobe.com, and the author of this fascinating news story, The Growing Signs of White Nationalist Recruitment, Extremism in Rhode Island and across New England, actually. Amanda, welcome to the program. What got you started on this particular beat, on this particular story?
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this.
Sure.
So we've just been noticing, actually, for over the last 2 years, the appearance of Oath Keepers, 3%ers, Proud Boys showing up at various marches. And it appeared to accelerate over the last couple of months. A local group, actually a local New England group called the Nationalist Social Club, showed up outside. It's called the Red Ink Library. It's kind of a private community library on the east side of Providence, and they were reading the Communist Manifesto, and this group showed up with Nazi flags and pounding on the windows. We've seen a lot of literature being dropped across the state. So, and particularly over the 4th of July holiday, and that appears to reflect what's happening nationally. The Anti-Defamation League has noticed since 2020 and through this March a 340% increase in propaganda drops and various leafleting and banner drops and all types of media from different types of white nationalist groups.
What is their main sales pitch?
Well, they're looking for, as at least the NSC says, like-minded white men to join them to, quote, take their country back, to reclaim America. It's actually even a password that they've used on some of their chats. They are very, the NSC is a neo-Nazi organization, although they try to present as a little more normal. They are anti-Semitic, they are anti-racist, they are very pro-Christian, white, patriarchal. And, the same goes for the Patriot Front, which marched with the NSC through Boston over the 4th of July weekend, and the Graham Defense League, which also showed up here in New England as well.
So basically their sales pitch is, we're white people, we're supreme, we're the destined rulers of America. Let's band together and keep the black people out and keep women in their place, essentially. Yes,
they're looking for people who are unhappy with the various changes in the social order, whether it's there's gay marriage or women's rights or trans people, and it's just people who are unhappy with it, who feel uncomfortable. They're trying to appeal to them, and also really the propaganda is being used to put everybody else on notice that they exist.
Right.
The caveat is they're not big groups. The Anti-Defamation League told me that they believe, like the Nationalist Social Club, which is based in New England, kind of an offshoot of the Patriot Front, which is national, is only about maybe 40 to 50 members. And you can cover a lot of ground if you drive around the car and throw leaflets out the window, basically, and make people think that you're bigger than you are.
In 1868, in that election, there was a substantial uptick. This is following the Civil War, a substantial uptick in black representation in the South. By 1876, there were 1,500 black men who had been elected to elected offices across the South, including, as I recall, 18 members of the U.S. House, 1 member of the U.S. Senate, over 300 members of state legislatures in southern states. And this produced this enormous white backlash that gave us the modern-day Klan, and that led to the Great Compromise of 1877 that ended Reconstruction, the Tilden Hayes election. And the whole idea of black people voting and participating in normal American life just went underground until the 1960s. It seems to me that this really started with the election of Barack Obama, a similar event, a black man in high political position in the face of white supremacists. And in 2008, because before 2008, I mean, the militia movement and the white supremacist movement, they had Tim McVeigh back in the day and Randy Weaver and, David Koresh, but they were considered fringe crackpots and nobody wanted to wave the flag saying, yeah, this is me. But ever since Obama was elected, I mean, we had the Tea Party explosion, we had all this stuff. Is that a reasonable assumption that a lot of this is, over the last 14 years, it can be traced right back to that?
I think that, that's a great question for extremist researchers, but I think it's a very astute observation. What I would add to that is look at social media. Look at the way it is so much easier for groups to mobilize, to create flash mobs, which is what these white nationalist organizations are doing. They're all showing up together at once and surprising the, quote, normies, as they call everyone else. And really, they can stay in touch. You can mobilize a national organization much easier than you could, way back in the day.
Right.
You can create propaganda, not just banners and stickers and things like that, but they actually have their own photographers. They look and see who has photo skills, who has video skills, and then they create their propaganda videos to show how tough they are. Some of the outtakes, the Unicorn Riot, that's an activist organization, and they've leaked a lot of information from, for example, Patriot Front and NSC. And some of the outtakes are really hilarious. You see a lot of the fails, the stickers that don't work, the graffiti that doesn't stay on. They don't know how to spray paint. There was a Patriot Front was doing a hike through Mount Agamenticus in Maine. And if you know that place, it shouldn't take you more than 20 minutes to hike it, but they were marching through like they were going into the deep woods. And but they can put it together in a very slick video and impress people. So I think that's something to be considered too. It's how they're mobilizing. I mean, also, one thing that the Anti-Defamation League told me, and the Southern Poverty Law Center said, we have politicians in high places and people high places who are actually leading this. The white replacement theory.
Right, Tucker Carlson.
Right. It's becoming much more mainstream, and this is really what's promoting these groups.
Yeah. Well, and this raises the kind of corollary question. If white backlash in the 1860s and 1870s actually succeeded in suppressing the rights of minorities for the following roughly 100 years, and clearly that's the goal of these people, do you think that there's any chance that they can pull it off now? I mean, back then, people of color were a very measurable small minority of Americans. I mean, we had immigration laws that had racial quotas right up until 1965. But now, today, the 5-year-olds going into kindergarten, 50% of them are not white. I mean, right. Is there any chance these guys can have any kind of, legislative or social success in ways that, or is this just noise around the fringe that's going to get a lot of people hurt and cause a lot of pain, but in the end, it's going to be full of sound and fury, signifying nothing?
Well, I mean, can it be both? I mean, I think that there is a lot of noise and fury, and I think that there are also people who are making legislative advances. I mean, look at a lot of the local races and the issues that are being brought up at the school boards and the town councils and the city councils.
And the voter suppression.
Look at what's happening and the voter suppression. And January 6th was a great example. I mean, there are people there who were showing up because they were mobilized for the president, and there were people there who with intent and purpose. At least that's what's being shown in the January 6th committee hearings. So, but the world is different than it was in the 1800s. I mean, there's an expectation now that we are a multiracial society, that this is not tolerated. It is causing a lot of concern, on the Jewish population and black people. A lot of people I've spoken to have said, what does this mean? And everybody wants to know, well, who are they? Because when they appear, they're all masked. And, that's, of course, a purpose. They don't want to be seen.
It's like the hoods for the Klan.
It's like the hoods for the Klan, sure. But you know what? It reminds me a lot of street gangs. I mean, I covered a crime for about 20 years, and a lot of the methods they're employing are the same methods I saw from the local street gangs. Well, when you cover up, you wear your colors, you have your neighborhoods, you cover up other people's graffiti.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And to that point of violence, again, if you look at the sale of guns in the United States and the number of guns on the streets in the United States.
Sure.
Those numbers only were gradually increasing up until 2008. In 2008, it went up so explosively. There's actually a Wikipedia page for the great ammunition shortage of 2008. In 2008 and 2012, after Obama was elected both times, you couldn't buy ammunition. I mean, the prices were out of sight, and now we've gotten, just since 2008, we've gotten over 20 million assault weapons on the AR-15 style weapons on the streets.
Sure.
So there's a lot more lethality out there. Do these groups reflect that lethality? Are they Are they a clear threat to life?
That's what the ADL believes. They are very concerned, and they look at that. Is this, a precursor to violence?
Yeah.
We can talk about 2008, but we really should be talking about 2020. We can talk about the beginning of the pandemic, and that's really when the lockdowns happened. That's when people were going out and buying weapons. People were buying weapons for the very first time because they were afraid. They didn't know what was happening. In my little state of Rhode Island, we have very strong gun laws. It's not really a gun-carrying culture, although it is, in the western part of the state. That changed in 2020. It was an enormous uptick and a huge percentage rise. And I think they led the country, actually, in percentage rise of background checks.
Fascinating. One of America's great reporters, Amanda Milkovits, Rhode Island reporter for the Boston Globe, bostonglobe.com. Amanda Milkovits, Milkovits on Twitter. Check out this work. Amanda, thanks so much for dropping by and sharing the result of your work with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. We'll be right back.